All right, I think that's good.
Yeah.
All right, let's just make this. Wait for John, and then
Shannon, whenever John's all set, you guys are good to go.
Can you guys hear me loud and clear?
Yeah.
I don't even have to test because I can hear myself. Don't even bother, Enzo. You might want to turn that down a little bit, bro.
all right, Shannon, can you speak one more time?
Hi, Enzo. How are
Okay.
you?
Oh,
It's
she's so quiet compared to
John is
me.
really loud and Shannon's really quiet.
Yeah. Please move closer to your microphone, Shannon.
I like up my nose. What do you mean?
My volume's maxed out and I can't even barely hear you.
I don't know what to do.
Hmm.
I can do nothing, but it will sound bad. How's this?
All right, John, if you just
Hello?
speak as quietly as you can.
Well, 1 second. I can change my mic settings.
Oh
Hold
no,
on.
no, no, not that quiet.
No one
All right,
wants to hear that.
just yeah. All right, I think it should be good.
Is this
I think we'll
better?
be
I
fine.
can yell also.
Is this
I can
better?
project.
Can you guys hear me? Is this better? Hello?
Shannon yell and then John be
Can you
quieter
hear
than
me?
usual.
Is this good? Is this
Can you
I
better?
think you guys are good.
All right. I'm going to say this is good.
I don't think they can hear me.
No, they can probably.
Oh,
We can
okay.
hear you, Shannon. We can
Well,
hear
Hear
you.
me? Am I
thanks for
super
telling
loud
me.
now? Am I good? Am I good,
You
Enzo?
guys are. You're good.
All
You
right,
guys are
bro.
good.
All right. Go ahead.
All right.
Whenever you're ready, Shannon.
Okay. Thank you everyone for coming to Twitch and RITSEC in person this week. Very exciting stuff. Today we will be presenting how to be an ally. Oh.
The mic unattached itself. Is it good now? Yeah. So for another intro slide, who am I? Fourth year CSEC, current running president of RITSEC, Red Team Chief. I'm into Windows and networking, and I am a diver. If I haven't talked about it already.
And I'm Shannon. I am a fourth year computing security student here at RIT. I used to be the president of RITSEC, and I was also the treasurer before that. I used to be the public relations head of Women in Computing, which is where I really got a lot of my knowledge on all things diversity. And then I am the current president and co founder of the Women in Cybersecurity Student Chapter. That's a nonprofit organization that has 100 student chapters across the country, and we are one of them, and we're one of the better ones, so in my opinion. Today, John and I are going to go over some important definitions in relations to being an ally, some of the problems we are seeing in the tech industry when it comes to minorities, and some of the solutions that you, our ATSEC members, can begin to implement to make the world a bit of a better place.
All right. So this is my first slide. If we went to the next one, Shannon. So what is an ally? So an allyship is an active, consistent, and arduous practice of unlearning and reevaluating, in which a person of privilege seeks to operate in a solidarity with a marginalized group of people. So a little bit toned down version of that is somebody who actively tries to fight and seek out and use their privilege to fight against discrimination and prejudice. So the key part there is that you use your privilege to help fight against the discrimination and prejudice. It's not just about believing in the equality, but it's taking an active stance in fighting it as a whole. Next slide, please, Shannon.
Yeah, so one of the things that I wanted to mention about being a mentor versus being an ally, especially here in RITSEC, they're not really the same thing. A mentor is someone that you look up to who can provide a lot of guidance and advice to you And that person should probably be an ally to you. Most definitely. If they're not, you got to check yourself. But you don't have to mentor someone and put all of that effort in just to be their ally. Being an ally is pretty simple. It's just something you actively continue to learn and stand up for others, but it's not something that has to be as time consuming as having an entire relationship with an individual. The next thing we're going to talk about is privilege. Privilege is different things that you have no control over. The term came around in the 1930s, and it only exists where oppression is. It is considered the opposite of oppression. And here are some examples of privileges. So, your race, your class, your gender, your sexual orientation, the language you may speak, your geographical location, your ability, and your religion. These are all different things that, depending on what you have, can give you a bit of an advantage depending on the situation that you are in. This little video up on YouTube, I feel like most people have seen it at this point because it's kind of old, but it's still a good one to go watch if you haven't. Basically, this man, I don't know how this situation came about because he's just in a field with a bunch of people, but holds up $100 to a bunch of kids and says, "We're gonna race. First one to me gets $100. But before we start the race, you're all gonna take a step depending on certain things in your life. So if someone grew up with parents that weren't divorced, then they would get to step up. Or if someone had a dad, they got to take a step up. Or if someone was never afraid that they wouldn't have a meal in their bellies, they would take a step up." And by the end, he said, "Turn around. Like, these people could outsmoke you in a normal run, but you have an advantage." So, something to understand is that everyone has privilege. Unless you are a disabled, broke, trans, black woman, you probably have some sort of privilege. You definitely have some sort of privilege. I have a lot of privileges, and it's important for you to take a second to reflect on what they are and then learn how to use them to help other people who may not have them. So, if I were to look at this list of privilege, I can go down it and tell you what I have. So, I am white, that covers my race on the more privileged side of things there. My class, I'm not rich, so I may not have as many opportunities as some other people who grew up with money when I did not. Gender, I'm a woman, so that's not always the best, but I am cis, so that helps there. In terms of sexual orientation, I'm straight. Language, I speak fluent English. Geographical location, growing up on Long Island, definitely gave me a lot of privileges. I miss those a lot. Ability, I am an able-bodied human for the most part, unless you ask me to hold something for too long. And then religion, I'm a Christian, so on that side of things, I tend to be more privileged. The point is, everyone has them, and it's something that you need to acknowledge and learn how to share.
Awesome. So yeah, can you hear me? It's not lighting up. All right,
Mhm.
there it goes. So I'm gonna get a little into biases. So what is a bias? The straight up definition of a bias is a prejudice in favor or against a person, group, or any one thing. Bias can be held by any individual, any group, or any institution. So that leads into what is an unconscious bias. So these are social stereotypes about groups that are formed outside of your own conscious awareness. Um, for example, everyone has unconscious bias. By default, it's a part of human nature. It's used to make decision making a lot easier. An example of this is when I get up in the morning to make breakfast, I immediately go for eggs. I don't even think about what I'm going to eat other than I go for eggs. I put my coffee ready to go. So that's an unconscious bias that helps with my decision making in the morning. So I don't have to think about what I want to eat. Um, so now, when does this become a problem? It becomes a problem when you unconsciously have prejudice in your unconscious bias. Um, so an example of this is I made some sort of statement in the labs many years ago, and Shannon approached me about unconscious bias because I didn't believe it was a thing. I was like, okay, I'm a good person. I don't have bias. I treat everyone the same. But then Shannon and I had a beautiful discussion similar to what I'm talking about now. Of everyone does have these unconscious biases, and just because you have them doesn't mean it's bad. But you need to make sure you're careful with what you say in order to make sure that you're not doing any prejudice or discriminatory things towards anybody.
All right, some of the problems we see specifically in tech. John, do you want to go over some of the statistics that we are actually seeing?
Yeah, so some of the statistics in tech are there are 26% of the actually computing related jobs are held by women, which is already a low number. And even lower, there's only 3% are held by African American women, 6% by Asian women, and 2% by Hispanic women. Uh, on top of that, 50% of women say they have experienced gender discrimination in the workforce, which is a large amount of them already for how little there are in the workforce. On top of that, 43% of Americans believe that women make a safer, more respected work environment than men do, and only 5% believe that men make a safer work environment. So those are just some statistics that we wanted to throw out there. Next slide, please. Oh, sorry. I have my presentation pulled up to the side with my notes. Why are these numbers so low? Microaggressions are a large part of why these are so low. So before I get into microaggressions, I wanted to spit a definition out to you guys. It's a common interaction that is subtle and often unconsciously or unintentionally expresses a prejudice attitudes towards a member of a marginalized group. So some examples of this are you can do the easy part of the project. I'll handle the rest. The easy part being the non-technical part of the project. Where are you really from? And then the classic, I have a black friend, so I can't be racist. These are all, some of these are unintentional. Some of these are unintentional. Some of these are more intentional. But regardless, it is a aggression that could possibly keep someone up thinking about up at night about like, why did they say something like that? Or that was something that really like put me off. So you really have to be careful with your actions and your words and your language when talking to people, because you could be saying things that you don't realize are aggressive towards them, but really keeps them up at night.
So something else I'd love to go over is the pipeline itself. It's a big reason why the numbers in the industry are so low is because no one's joining it in the first place. Actually, in 1984, when computers started to kick off, there were more women in the field. 30% of computer science degrees came out from women. And then in the 90s, it started to drop like crazy. And that's really when personal computers showed up in the home. And NPR says that that drop happened due to the marketing of computers, because they started to say that, you know, computers are for video games, computers are for boys. So they would keep going over that. Every commercial you saw had a boy. And eventually we ended up where we are now, which is only women earn 18% of computer science degrees today, which is crazy because in reality, more women are going to college than men total. So to see that number being so low for a CS degree, it's really disappointing. And one of the reasons that this happens, again, it comes from a young age. So a solution to this is going out and doing K through 12 outreach. This is something that Women in Computing does. It's something that RATSEC is going to try and do once the pandemic is over, or maybe during it. But think about it. Like, people always say, oh, the women just aren't interested in it, or minorities just aren't interested in computers, so that's why they don't join the field. But you can't be interested in something that you're never exposed to. If you're from a low socioeconomic area, you probably don't have a computer science class in your high school. You may not even have computers. There are a lot of students right now who the first time they had a computer in their household is because their district was required to give it during the pandemic. So that's definitely something to take into consideration. But there's things that you can do. Like Girl Scouts have badges to help expose women to STEM. And you can always go back to your high school. Something that I always try to do is go back and speak to the computer science classes at my high school and tell the kids that they really should join this industry and that they should be passionate about it, and that there's more than just what you see in high school. And if your high school doesn't have one, go to your math classes and they'll be more than willing to hear about it. There's kids who have such potential to do such amazing things in this industry if they're just given the chance and shown the opportunity is there. So do it for the kids. And then advancement. As I said, there's not enough women coming into the field, but there also is the issue that they are not staying in it once they get here. Cybersecurity specifically has a really low retention rate because of such a high burnout. Many companies are seeing this really hit home when it comes to minorities. As John said, 50% of women have said they experience discrimination in the workplace, and that number of people goes up when you include all minorities. So it's a big issue when it comes to retention, and you'll see that more people would be retained more if they were to see the representation around you. If you consider imposter syndrome, it's something that people talk about a lot these days. When you look around and you literally feel like you shouldn't be there because no one looks like you, it's really hard to feel comfortable in that position. So minorities will also end up working extra hard to make up for the fact that they may feel like they don't belong. I actually just found out that more women have cybersecurity certifications than men because they're always going out and doing something extra to compensate for the fact that they don't have a privilege that someone else does. And so once you do that extra hard work and you don't get rewarded for it, you feel really frustrated and undervalued, and that's when you end up leaving. So doing training opportunities are really important to make sure that people are getting the qualifications they need. Other things that help with retention is visibility. When you are going out and doing the hard work, it's really important to be shown and to be advocated for that. So if you ever see someone who is a minority going out and doing a great thing, make sure that it's recognized by the whole team and by the whole community. Give them a shout out. Make sure that they're being seen. And that's part of the support, making sure that when you are in a group, you support every single team member equally and maybe give special extra attention to those who have less privilege than you, because you might be making unconscious efforts not to do so by accident.
All right, so now we're gonna get into the toe stepping example. So let's say you step on someone's toes. How do you handle yourself? How do you conduct yourself in that situation? Do you say to yourself, "I can't believe you think I'm a toe stepper. I'm a good person." You deny the other's experience are different from your own. I don't mind when my toes are stepped on, so what does it matter if I step on your toes? You derail it. Someone doesn't. Some people don't even have toes. Why aren't we talking about them? Refusal to center the impact. All toes matter. Tone policy. I'd move my foot if you'd ask me more nicely. Um, Denial that the problem is fixable. Toes don't get stepped on is a fact of life. You will be better off accepting that fact. Victim blaming. You shouldn't have been walking around people with boots. Withdrawing. I thought you wanted to help, but I guess not. I'll just go home. So these are all obviously related examples of real life scenarios and can be applied to a lot of different things. So yeah, if we want to advance the slide and go over some how it should be handled instead of saying all those things. Alrighty. So how should you handle accidentally stepping on someone's toes? Maybe ask if they're okay, and then you listen to the response and learn from that response. You then apologize for the impact, even if you didn't intend to do it. Sometimes accidents happen, but you should apologize for it. Stop the instance. Move your foot. And then stop the pattern. Be careful where you step in the future. When it comes to oppression, you actually want to change your footwear to get rid of the privilege and oppression. Metaphors can only stretch so far. So now a little bit about overcoming your fears and being an ally. The biggest fear I had when becoming an ally is that I would get canceled for making a mistake. But that's not the case. If you are actually honestly making a mistake and you want to work to fix that mistake, you're not going to get canceled. It's okay to make a mistake as long as you're actually willing to embrace, get involved, and learn. I'm going to talk a little bit more about learning in a second, but you have to drop your ego in order to do that. You have to get rid of the fact that, oh, I'm not causing any problems. I think everyone, even if you are in the state of mind where you think, oh, I treat everyone the same, that's an ego. Drop that. You still need to learn. There's more there. You might not be seeing it from everyone's perspective. If we can go to the next slide, please. So on back into education, you have to educate yourself. It is not anyone's job to educate you, but yourself. Take the time to educate yourself on some topics like this. Does not take that long. Pull up a YouTube video, read an article. You can even do it while eating dinner or something, or breakfast or lunch. Does not take that much time. Read some different resources. There's a lot of resources out there. Take some time, explore some different resources so you have a nice broad understanding. Admit to your mistakes. Make sure you're admitting to mistakes that you make. Like I said earlier, it's okay to make mistakes, but if you're not going to learn from those mistakes and then fix them, it's not okay. Um, taking time from minorities gives them less time to develop their skills. And what I mean by that is taking time for them to teach you, minorities to teach you about this stuff instead of you educating yourself takes time from them developing skills that they could be working on and they have to teach you. I took time from Shannon away yesterday doing her concepts lab that she had to help me write this slide. So that's my bad.
That's okay. Happy to do it.
And then listening. This is not even just allyship, but general life advice. Listen to what people have to say. Everyone has something to say, and you want to take a look at it from their perspective. Everyone has a different perspective. So you got to make sure you're actually taking a look at it from how they feel. How do they feel about it? Why are they saying it? All of these things you want to take into consideration. And you want to be an active listener. You don't want to just listen to what someone has to say and then brush it off. Actually act on the actions of the conversation that you're having.
Awesome. Good job, John. I'm going to talk a little bit more about those actions that you can take. We've talked a lot about how we should do that. So, holding others accountable, like John said, if anyone is going out and stepping on toes, which is a metaphor for being a jerk and saying something that is discriminatory, you need to call them out. You need to do it in a way that is good, something like that. At least that I've been given advice recently. If someone says something that is wrong in a meeting, that I can turn to them and say, I'll give you a second to reword that, or why is that funny? If someone's saying a bad joke. So definitely hold others accountable and make sure that you're doing it often. Don't let them get away with it. Showing minorities your support. So it's more than just saying it. It's more than just walking out there and saying, I am an ally, I got your back. Actually going out of your way to show that support really does matter and impacts. Sharing your privilege. I've spoken a lot about privilege and what they are and that everyone has it, but to actually share it is what you guys need to understand today. So how does that work? If you are someone in a position of power, there's a lot of things that you can do for other minorities and a lot of privileges that you may be able to share. People tend to like people that are like themselves. If I personally were to look at my friend group, they all look a lot like me. And that gives me the ability to advocate to them about someone who doesn't look like me because maybe, yeah. So advocating for others, using your privilege to do so because you're in the position with that privilege is really important. Here are some things you can do. You can speak their name when they aren't around in a good way. You can be in a meeting with a bunch of executives and they will say, who do we need for the next project? And making sure that you're putting that person's name out there is a really good way to be an ally. Endorsing them publicly, shouting them out in a meeting for their good work, saying that they can do it, also really good. One of the things that people complain about a lot in the real world is that during a meeting, someone will say something and that person will be a minority, and then someone who's not a minority may say it again, and the second person will get the praise. So make sure that you are calling out that first person for the points that they are sharing. Share their career goals with decision makers. Again, you might be in a room where it happens and the other person may not. So you want to go out and tell them that, they're looking to advance this way or this way. Invite them to high profile meetings, giving them the opportunity to meet with decision makers and form that relationship. Recommend them for stretch assignments and speaking opportunities, making sure they get that visibility so that they can move their career forward. Those are a couple things that you can do. And then the last thing I wanted to talk about, because it's always kind of a spicy topic, is WESIS and women only groups. You'll see things like WESIS or Grace Hopper or Women in Computing that might seem like they are exclusive to men. But honestly, I've never been in one of these diversity groups that excludes men. They've always been all inclusive environments. And I'd say that WESIS here at school definitely has that attitude also. We really welcome our allies and we value them incredibly because no there aren't enough women to even advance the women, so you definitely need allies on your side. These are just supportive environments, safe spaces where you can talk, and communities that you know will have your back no matter what. You can go there and feel supported instead of having to look around for it in a world that doesn't really look like you. And then they work to close the gap. All of these things are doing different activities to actually contribute back. So they'll do K through 12 a lot, they'll hold workshops all the time, and then they will also do research as to why women aren't maybe advancing in the field or being retention. And they're looking for solutions constantly and sharing them. And they do actually work. If you look here, that's a ShmooCon group picture because all the gals take one on the steps every year. And that was 2019 versus 2020. And that was because we started the WESA student chapter. We had alumni speak to our students every week. Everyone was excited to meet each other that weekend. It was a really great time. And honestly, like every time I see those gals, I get so excited and they just keep me going and like inspire me. So that's one of my favorite things. And these groups are really awesome. And if you are someone who feels like you don't belong in them because you aren't a woman in cybersecurity, that's not true. We want you there. We want you to feel welcome and we want you to join us and help advocate for us in the future, and we can learn from one another. So that's the talk. I hope you come to WESIS. Next week, we are doing a hacking for social good in the Discord, which means we are going to go over all of the nonprofits that you can join as a cybersecurity industry professional and or a student, and you can start contributing and volunteering your work to other fights like this. So that's it. I wanted to thank John for doing this talk with me. He's definitely come a long way from the human he was in the beginning of school versus where we're at now. We've had a lot of those tough, uncomfortable conversations, but he has always listened once, I gave him a knock in the head or something, but he has grown a lot. So I really appreciate it. And if John can do it, you guys can too.
I'm sure you can see me laughing through my mask, but yes, I appreciate you inviting me to do this, Shannon. It means a lot.
Of course. Love you, John.